Scoopers here. We're here to cover the round 9 potential trade-ins, the sells. It's a wild week here. Potentially tough to fill 17 unless you are using those 3 trades. And Scoop is going to be carrying the podcast with his lovely voice and his lovely team. 932 in this one for him into rank 594. Tell us about the week that was, Scooby.
Yeah, well, I started really well because there was a couple of traps, like unfortunately Host went off. We couldn't have predicted that. And a couple of other low scores from guys like Walsh and Hammer. It just looked like there was going to be a decent score. And then a late bring in with Manu, and then big scores from Bird, Cheese, Tanner Boyd, and Grant just brung it over the top. Fantastic jump for me this week. I think we're pretty much level on points now, hey?
You got me by a bit. I'm into a little. Thankfully, I'll take it. They didn't give Bird the extra 4 points that he was updated to, so he's 62, but still 14 tackle breaks is ridiculous. So I'm at 785, I think, overall. So we're close, like 20 points or something behind. So well done, you deserve it. It's been a bunch of weeks in the making. So yeah, the squad really. You've got a couple of guys on the bye, right, and then Haas suspended. So do you think it'll be a 3 trade week for you?
Yeah, I think it has to be. I think a lot of people are going to be looking to do something like that. If you've got Grant and Haas is almost $2 million just between them on your bench this week. And then you probably have got at least another couple of Storm guys that you want to move on. You're going to struggle to make 17 this week unless you make quite a few trades. And I mean, there's all these whispers that Cleary might not play and all that. So if he's a late scratching, we could be in a lot of trouble. There is potentially strategy in selling Grants now if you think he's going to lose money and just jumping to Robson so that you can get down to 3 Origin players for round 13. But I mean, that's sort of the desperate measures we're talking here. It'll require a bit of thought first.
Yeah, well, that hooking position, let's target that as well. You obviously spoke about it in your buy video, and Grant, it was probably an easy sell if you did get 50 this week, but the 77 in a position that's really tough. There's so much merit in just holding him, right? Like, obviously, Payne Haas in that mids position, there are a lot of mids that are doing pretty well, Payne being the best of them with Yo. In the hooking position, there's not much. Like, Smithy had a good one, but like, Jeremy Marshall-King was bad, Robson was pretty average as well. There's a lot of merit in holding him, right? Even though he does miss a lot of games.
Oh, definitely. Particularly with Robson, just slowing up a little bit in recent weeks. For a while, he was doing pretty close to Grant, but he's come back a bit. What's Grant averaging? Grant's got to be averaging mid 60s. Yeah, nearly 64. And sort of the other best options are all like mid 50s or low 50s, unless you're one of the few people who have Damien Cook, and even he's behind Grant. So I think at this stage after that score, you just have to hold. And with Haas missing 3 games for Origin and being suspended this week, you could even make an argument that you could sell him. He's going to have a 2-3 day turnarounds. He'll probably play those during the Origin period, but maybe he loses a tiny bit of cash and you pick him up at 800k after Origin. There's a couple of wild ideas that might work out, but you're going to have to definitely commit if you're going to do them.
Yeah, and that one, like, you probably win this week if you traded Haas or you trade Grant, but the next bunch up until Origin, you probably lose out a little bit. So there's a lot to it. And Haas, the good thing with him, you'd be selling him at peak and 905k. You can do so much with it, and probably almost fix a lot of issues in your side if you did trade out a Grant or a Haas, something like that. So yeah, so many interesting ways to go about round 9, and we have a short turnaround. We back into games tomorrow. So yeah, it's absolutely crazy. Let's start with another crazy player, Jake Granville, up to 312k. Unfortunately, after a big score from him, and he had that low break even and made plenty of cash. So still a low break even this week. He's named on the bench, but them having the first game, guys, it allows you to see if he's actually going to start. I think with the start, you would probably see somewhere around that 55 to 60 minutes like he got last game. But that was also a bit of an outlier in some of the bigger minutes games that he has played, right? Because you look at some games over the last bunch of years, I've got him here over 40 minutes. He's got scores of 22, 18, 24, 19 in sort of 40 plus minutes. So what are your thoughts on Granville going forward this week? Would you look to potentially pick him up, or would you avoid?
It's very tough, to be honest. If he's a late switch to starting, like he did with Ruben Cotter last week, I would definitely consider it.
Yep.
But who would have guessed a couple of weeks back that Jake Granville was the sub 300 guy we were looking for, and now he's just over that. But yeah, he's probably got to break even about 0 again. And Tamalolo's out for another three or 4 weeks, I think. So in all honesty, Granville could be a very sneaky option. I mean, there's every chance that he goes back to 35, 40 minutes sort of a thing. Because, I mean, he is nearing the end of his career. I'm actually very surprised they're playing him for so many minutes over some of these other guys. But, I mean, it's not the worst shout, but it is definitely risky.
Yeah, I just think that cash gain last week, it kind of hurts. You wanted to bring him in last week. This one just makes it a little bit harder at 312 for sure. Adam Fanua-Blake I want to go to next. 693k, he makes plenty after that cracking score of 80 on the weekend and a 61 the game before. He's been a little bit up and down in terms of his scoring, and obviously the minutes haven't been crazy high, but is he one of those guys you'd look towards because he looked like an absolute superstar on the weekend, or do you think it was a bit of a flash in the pan couple of games for him these last two?
He's a very interesting one because he's sort of threatened to be relevant in the last couple of years and do something like he did at Manly in, I think, 2019. He's just that really big body that can get you those big tackle breaks and offloads, a bit like Sofa Solomona, but a little bit more consistent minutes and role. I think he is definitely a little inflated from Tohu Harris going down injured and a couple of those things. But I mean, Tohu could be out for a while pending news. Same with Tavaga. I think he's got an Achilles problem. Mitch Barnett's not back till round 11, I think. So, I mean, in all honesty, he could be a very interesting one to have, at least for the first half of Origin, pending Tohu and Tavaga's injury layoffs.
For sure. And yeah, I suppose that the price is a little bit awkward when you could go for Josh Curran, who is at 522 and is named to start at lock this week. He'll at least play the next bunch. It just depends. I think we do need to wait on some injury news on Tohu. I think that he's going to be the shorter out compared to that of Jazz, who, yeah, anything Achilles related doesn't sound very good. I did see they had ice on his calf, so I'm not sure exactly. I'm obviously not a physio. I don't know how it works exactly, but yeah, it could be decent minutes out. It could be decent time out. It could be a little bit of a shorter one as well. But we need to find out more information on those two. Obviously, with their game last night, we probably won't find out until hopefully tonight. But then we can make a decision on Curran. If we do happen to see, let's say Tohu's out for a month now, would Curran be worth it for you?
I think it'd have to be 6 weeks for me to be interested in Curran because the Warriors also have the round 12 bye.
Yeah.
And so if Tohu's out for a month, that's only actually 3 weeks you're going to get out of Curran. And he just dropped a low score. So you're not going to make money this week, really. Not much at all. And then you only have really 2 weeks of good cash making. A little bit like Jaden Campbell a couple of weeks back with AJ Brimson having sort of that rough month timeline and a high break even. I think you have to wait and see if Tohu's probably out for 6+ weeks before you jump on Curran. But if he is, looks a fantastic option when most of our current edges that we've got, like Preston, Katoa, Loiero, they all miss round 13 and Curran doesn't. So I think he's a strong option if Tohu's out for a while.
Yeah, I think for me, if we see 3 or 4 weeks, doesn't matter, hey, because I got the bye. So yeah, you probably want 6, which gives you that extra couple, I'd say. But yeah, either way, does he get big minutes if Tohu comes back early, or do you think that Barnett kind of kills him there?
Yeah, I'm not sure what to think of him because he's been a very good player in the past, and the Warriors just haven't really wanted to play him for massive minutes this year. So
he scores so well when he's
if Troops come back, it sort of seems tough. He might be the one that loses out.
Yeah, I agree with that. So he's definitely a scary one, but a fairly cheap one at that. Let's go to Ruben Cotter. And really what we said last week was that you're going to get good scores out of him. Likely plays Origin, but we're 1 week closer to that now. Would you still look to pick him up now that you've seen how good he did play with that 63 in that 65-minute roll off the bench, which he probably likely does again?
If you're a head-to-head player, lock it in. Fantastic. Yep. But if you're an overall player, I think you probably avoid now. He's almost 700k.
Yeah.
And you can get probably DeBellin for a little bit cheaper and plays around 13. DeBellin 68 minutes with head injury assessment. That's really, really promising. We were looking for big minutes 2 weeks in a row, and he looks like he's going to get them.
Yeah, which is great news. So yeah, Cotter, I think there's slightly better options, as you said. Payne Haas, we spoke about him a fair bit at the start. Any further thoughts on that one? Or is it kind of like just base it around your team, how many players you got out, if you need to fix up your squad?
Yeah, if you've got 3 or 4 Origin players, you can probably hold him. If you've got a lot, maybe like if you've got like Latrell in for some reason, and not a lot of people do, you're gonna have to sell a couple come Origin, and maybe you just go a little early on him and use that cash to really stock up. Maybe you go down to one of those mids like Cheesethall to Bell and upgrade one of your basements to, well, maybe you go both of those, like a basement and Haas for those two might actually be a really good trade.
Yeah, I suppose you really want to hope that he doesn't get 75 80s over the next few weeks when he does come
Yeah,
back.
definitely.
That would kill you. Otherwise, like if you can get 55s from DeBellin and these types of guys, and Haas is going 65, it's not the end of the world. And you've probably fixed up elsewhere, which is great. So yeah, definitely a hit or miss that one. You can decide. Hammer, thoughts on him after 3 low scores in his last 4? Is that right? Where are we at? Yeah. So what have we got? 38,
Yeah,
56, 28, 65, 32, and 28. So yeah, 3 scores from 32 or below in his last 4. Do we think he's going to be fine with their little run coming up of Raiders and then obviously Sharks? They do have their bye. If you own him, do you just hold all the way through the bye period?
I think that if you hold him, I think if you own him, he's a definite hold. And if you don't own him, don't go looking for bringing him in until he's dropped a lot of cash. He was always going to be that guy that would come down when he finally stopped scoring tries. Did absolute amazing things early season, but none in the last 2 weeks. And it just come back a little bit. He's a good scoring fullback available at center. He's not an elite wing fullback option. But yeah, I think he's going to be fine, particularly if he can go over, because he's such an important part of their attack that he's going to be more likely than most others to go over for a try and boost his 35 to a 45, 50.
Yeah, apart from that one game, his meters have been down too, so that's a bit of a strange one. He needs to get that up if he's going to get back to those good scores. But yeah, clearly a hold for sure. Let's go to the Raiders guys now. Corey Horsburgh will kick it off with as our cheaper option, and then we'll go to Tapine. So 583 for Corey. The last 2 games, he's played 70 minutes, which is pretty crazy. Definitely unexpected. And obviously the initial thought is Raiders and minutes is going to be a worry. He's had games of 30 off the interchange, 3 of them to be exact. He's got a 40, a 50, and then 2 70-minute games. Is he too much of a worry for you, or do you think that there's some value there?
If I thought Ricky was going to be consistent, I'd buy him, but I don't. If you're a Tapine owner, you're pretty upset that Horsburgh's taking all of those middle minutes away from you. But Tapine often revs up towards Origin and pushes those minutes higher. I think last year he averaged about 47, 48 minutes between round 1 and 10, and round 10 and round 20, he averaged like 58 minutes. So there's a chance that Horsburgh does drop and Tapine steps up potentially as Papali'i goes to Origin, or just in general through the mid-season.
That's an interesting one there. Like you're just looking at tackles and runs through those last 2 games. So no attacking stats really at all. Like 2 games ago was no tackle breaks, no offloads. Last one was 1 of each. And that got him the 54. So if he has a little bit of attacking stats, he's a 50s type of guy. You get him all the way to 16 as well. So there's a lot of value there in that question. But the worry of the minutes is going to be the thing. And yeah, this is a price that he kind of hovers. This is probably a higher price that you see him between the years. Like he gets to about a 620. That's kind of his max. So do we see that changing? That's kind of the question you need to ask yourself there with Corey. Let's go to Tups next. So 737, he has a very high break even. If you don't own him, would you be looking to just wait and see and find out what's going to happen with his minutes first before looking to pick him up?
I definitely would wait a week. The last week we had a couple of guys with high break evens who we wanted to bring in, like Manu, but we had a little bit of history behind that. Manu in the spine scores amazingly well. Tapine can score well, but he just hasn't hit a big one yet. He hasn't been given what he needs, and you can definitely play it safe. Even if he busts out an 80 this week, it hurts a little bit, but he's only made like 10K or something. So he's definitely cheap, and I think you can get him for cheap even if you don't get him this week.
Definitely. Go to JDB now. We spoke about him a little bit at the start. 626k, so he hasn't gone up too much, which is nice. Break even's still around that 40 mark, but as you said there, it was a weird one, wasn't it? Because he get the HIA, like, didn't he get hit in the head just before halftime?
Yeah, I think so. He ended up with 68 minutes. I'm trying to figure
But
out.
then he went off in the like 52nd minute or something. It was wild.
Oh yeah, it was 52nd. Went off 52nd minute, came back about 64 minutes.
Yeah.
So there must have been a couple stoppages to give him that 15 minutes that they're mandated to stay off the field.
Like, I don't know how they didn't look at that earlier. But I don't. That seems so ridiculous. Because I remember seeing him. He was like a little bit, a bit dazed when he went down to that tackle. I think it was like the 37th minute, and then they bring you off in the 52nd. I don't know. It was a bit of a strange one, but that is good signs, right? Because there's still now a chance that he plays 80 minutes, and in this game he started really well. Got the offload in there. Got an early turnover tackle. He had 4 missed tackles in this one, which is probably a little bit out of the ordinary, right?
Yeah, I think so. De Bellin's one of those guys that has been an elite fantasy workhorse in the past, a little bit like Cam McInnes has been in the past. He kind of took over that lock role a couple of years back. And although he's a bit older now that he's playing lock for really big minutes, I think you just jump on because you know the history's there and you're going to get good stuff from him. You might get a couple missed tackles, but if he didn't have a missed tackle and he got maybe another tackle break or offload, you're looking at a 60 already. So fantastic signs for Jack de Belin moving forward and round 13.
Yeah, the range would be somewhere about that, 47 at the floor to like a 65, right? So really, when you're paying 45 average for it, it's great. So yeah, de Belin, someone I'm targeting this week for sure. Let's talk about one of the cash down potentials. So Dream Bula there had a solid game overall. He had 5 tackle breaks. He ran for 177 meters. I look at that and that excites me. He still had 2 errors in this game, which is very normal. And it was a fairly close one. Big issue for me this week is them playing Penrith. Like, how do you pick them up? And then in 2 weeks they play Rabbitohs. I think he can get really found out in those couple of games. So I'm worried about him. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are that the Tigers are becoming the Raiders and you can't trust the teams or the team lists and people being dropped and things like that. Look, Bula has the makings of being a good fantasy option. The problem is he might be gone in a couple of weeks. I think he was the 4th fullback that they started with in the first 8 rounds. So although he praised him in the press conference and said he did all right, like, do you really trust that he's going to stay there? I mean, if the Tigers coach gets sacked, does he just disappear? There's a lot of things that can go wrong with him, and he could turn into another emergencies nightmare to pry out of your team.
And he had no missed tackles on the weekend either, so I can see him getting like a 15 this week. He could come get a 30 again. I doubt there's like a 45-50 in his game at the moment, especially against the best teams. You know, maybe against Dragons, he could do like a Sloan type of performance, but yeah, I'm definitely worried that even with that, break even of around that 15 mark or whatever it's going to be, probably a little bit less. It says 17 on footy stats, but I think it's lower than that. I'm definitely worried. But if you need to go for him, if you went for him last week, then great. You really hope that he plays all the way through the buys now, for sure. Let's go to Alamoti and a few of the potential sells now. If you have him and Warbrick, you sell one. Do you go Warbrick or Alamoti?
I think you go Warbrick just purely because Warbrick's not playing and the Dogs actually get a little bit of an easier run now, despite their team being a little bit damaged. They put up a decent performance against the Sharks and only went down late. And they've got Dragons, Raiders, Warriors, and Gold Coast before their round 13 bye. I think he can recover. His stats were pretty good. The reason why he scored bad in round 6 and 7 is because he got moved to the wing because of Adokar and Kiraz's injuries. He would have scored like mid-30s had he not suddenly out of nowhere got 7 missed tackles. So I think, well, even though it sucked last week, he could be fine to hold moving forwards and potentially sell in round 13 or maybe round 16, something like that.
Just seems like there's more issues in the squads, right? Like we have just so much going on this week. So I think, for me, Warbrick's going to go. Alamoti will stay. The break-even's not too high, around that 30 mark. So he's cool. And Warbrick, he's done his time. He's made his cash. Like if you can move him on, do you try and upgrade him, or could you potentially go like Warbrick to Granville, save some cash, Warbrick to potentially one of the other cheaper guys? There's not many, but would you go that way, or just try and upgrade him and downgrade one of your top guns that's like a Katoa or those guys?
I think that's what the strategy is going to be. I think you're going to be pulling out Warbrick plus one of those sort of 600k guys and downgrading and upgrading. It just depends what your team looks like as to whether it's upgrades in Warbrick's position for like maybe Joey Manu, or whether you go down to like a Bula and up to DeBellin or something like that. It's going to depend what you need for your team.
For sure. Okay, let's go to Eli Katoa. Do you think he's a clear sell now? Like if he scored 45, 50, you could potentially hold him, but with that low one, with the high break even now, do you think he's gone?
Yeah, it's really tough because we were hoping he'd turn out to be a keeper, but now you basically have to trust and bank on him being a keeper because otherwise he's just going to sit around that price point and do not a lot for you. I don't even think he was doing that well before he went off. I think he'd scored
19.
Was on track for about a 40 if he was going along at the same rate, and Loiero seems to have really stepped up. So I think Katoa, although it's a little sad, 2 bad scores in a row and price definitely falling on a buy. Just too many ticks in the sell category for me.
Yeah, I agree. He's going for my team. And then Trent, on the other hand, hold or sell, either way, you think it's fine?
I think it depends how many Storm guys you have, and if you have Grant, Haas, Cleary. I really would like to hold Loiero now if you have him, because he's making a lot of money. He's made 38k last week, and if he keeps scoring sort of 45, 50s even for the next little while before Origin, he could get up to 650k sort of a thing and be Preston level instead of a little bit lower, like sort of where Tanner Boyd's at the moment. But I think he's a good hold if you can. But I mean, a lot are going to be selling this week just because he's on the buy and there's a lot of issues. So I don't have any issues with trading him out if you have to.
Yeah, I think I'm potentially holding, but yeah, that's where I'm at. Khan Pereira, let's speak about him. 376, had a low one on the weekend. Could have had a try, but I think Brian Kelly just ran a terrible line and stuffed him up. But 18 in this one. He has 11 and an 18 his last 3. Do you think it's time to move him on? He's 376k. He's almost at Warbrick level.
Yeah, I think you've had your fun. He's done similar things to Warbrick. He's going to be that winger that one time will score a 60 and then he'll drop a 10 on you. And I think, like Warbrick, he's one that can go out this week. He does play, Warbrick doesn't. So if you have much more pressing issues, you could use elsewhere. But yeah, a decent one to get rid of this week if you can.
Yeah, look, he got 0 in round 1 and he got down to 220k and you've made 156 from there. So take it and run. Let's go to Chance. Do you look at him as a hold? It's most likely out for 1 week, given it was Cat 2 symptoms. Obviously, see how he recovers. This is his second time out this year, right? Yeah,
I think so, yeah. Did he fail his HIA? He did. I think that automatically rules him out for 11 days, doesn't it?
If what? Yeah. I think it was Cat 1, you get the 11-day automatically, and then Cat 2, it's like discretionary.
Yeah, okay. Well, I probably still would sell for one reason, because they have the round 12 bye, and if he does end up needing to go for 11 days, this is one of the 3 times, one of only 3 instances this year where a team backs up close enough that they will miss 2 games with this 11-day stand down. So you could have him back and all right and good, particularly because he actually didn't do too bad before he went off. He got 33. He won't lose much money and all that. But if he does end up having 11 days off, he's going to miss 3 of the 4 upcoming games, and that'll really be nasty for you. So if we get more news on how he's going before he potentially plays, maybe you can hold him, but I'm probably leaning towards more the sell because of that.
Yeah, if he's out the next 2 games plus the bye, then I 100% agree with you. Let's go to Blore. If you held on to him for this long, is he a sell?
Yeah, I think so. It looks like Sheens has shown that he wants to prioritize other guys ahead of him at the moment, which is really, really annoying, because after that 61 in round 5, we thought he was going to make some really good coin, and he's kind of just come to a screaming halt. He has made some for us if you've jumped on, so it's not the end of the world, but yeah, out again this week. I think he's probably out. Yeah,
it's weird, hey? All right, this is a little bit of praise for Ben Murdoch, the best cash cow in the world, Masilla. Another 20k gain. He's up 47k now. What a man. I just wanted to give him a shout out. Any shout out from you, Locke?
I sold him this week to fund cheese, but I mean, you can't be upset making 20k. He's making you money. I mean, he's not useless. He's doing well. Big money Masilla. Gotta love him.
Let's hope we can get a few more weeks out of him. Let's hope we can get him to 350k. That'd be gold. All right, let's go to Jermaine Hopgood, 682k. Probably worth a wait this week, and then potentially an option. With their buy in round 14, would you look to get him maybe in round 10, or maybe wait until 15? Or not at all?
I think it depends whether Matterson plays Origin. I think if Matterson plays Origin, you buy him round 13 because you could have 80-minute superstar Hopgood again because RCG out for 8 to 10 weeks. Paulo probably playing Origin. Matterson playing Origin. He's the only big minute middle left. He's going to play 80 minutes. I would wait on him because he is still going down. We'll have to see what the minutes rotation because he still didn't do that great with Paulo gone. But yeah, I think he's definitely an option if Matterson plays Origin. If not, he probably not so much. So I'd wait.
Yeah, for sure. Widamil Greig at 248k. I've just popped up on the stats here that he's played 2 games in his life over 30 minutes. And that comes with a 27 and a 24 in 32-minute average. Do we even look at him as a potential cash down or just avoid completely?
Yeah, I think you just wait. He's still under 250k. He'll rise some this week, but not. You wouldn't expect him to set the world on fire. Easy wait and see what happens.
Easy. Lockie Miller, 668k. A couple of low ones in a row. What are our general thoughts on him? There's obviously probably too many issues this week, but is there a little bit of worry that he could potentially be a sell in round 10?
Oh, I think there's a little bit of worry. He's shown that he can be a fantastic scorer on his day, but he can also switch off. We've found out the hard way in the last couple of weeks. I think he's probably going to be a hold at least until round 14, I think, covering that round 13 wing fullback spot. But maybe he's not going to be a keeper this year like we were hoping. So especially if he loses the goal kicking, it's a little bit worrying for him. He needs to go back to those big tackle break numbers.
He could do it too. Like he went 4 games in a row where he was averaging mid-60s. So definitely a hold easily because if you sell him and he goes nuts again, and it's one of the best scorers in wing fullbacks, which has been a pretty tough position apart from him and Walshy, to be fair, then you would be regretting that for sure. So, Matto, do you think that it's still safe trading him in?
I'm getting more and more worried. Hey, like there's another Blues forward gone with Campbell Gillard out for 8 to 10 weeks with that groin problem. I'm getting more convinced that Matterson's going to be sort of that utility middle that New South Wales is going to run on the bench. I think it's a tough ask, especially where he's priced highly. He's going to score probably around that high 50s for you, but when you can get a couple of other guys for 200k cheaper scoring low 50s, I think you just fade him for now and wait and see what happens.
Yeah, if you got him, no issues for sure. But yeah, I agree with that assessment. The Mitch Moses, Dylan Brown kind of thoughts. Obviously a low one for both of them. A 34 for Moses. Would you still look to buy him this week or potentially just wait a little bit?
No, definitely wait on Moses. If you can pick him up cheap, that'd be great. We were hoping he would to be the beginning of the year, but he went great in those tough games and has just dropped a low one finally. So I think, yeah, you wait and hope he goes towards 700k or 750k. Dylan Brown, he just kind of hasn't done it this year. It's just symptoms of last year. That is 6 40s in a row. You don't want that in your team. That is not quite sell, and it's hair tearing territory.
Thank you, Lockie. I appreciate that. Moses, that is that. All right, Perham, is he just a clear hold at the moment after that decent score against a harder team? And they've got some easier ones coming up?
Yeah.
That's my thoughts too.
The Eels are always going to come to this run, and I think they'll go well and particularly win a few. I think they will go up, but how much will they go up? That's the issue. I think you wait and see, wait for a big score and then get on instead of hoping for it.
He's due for a 50-year-old hazy, for sure, if you are holding on. Joey Manu, do you pick him up this week if you didn't go last week?
I think you do. He's named again at 5'8", and the thing was, I think Robbo said beforehand that they're looking to play Manu at 6 because that's where he'll play next year and give Walker some time to get ready to run the team. So that makes me feel like he's going to learn how to lead the team around the park in reserve grade for a good while, maybe even until the origin period, and then he'll probably play fullback anyway. So Manu, I think, is a fantastic option now. Doesn't play round 13, but he can solve a lot of wing fullback issues and centre issues for round 16 in particular.
Yeah, the big thing there was obviously 29 missed tackles, so a little bit of an increase from his centre output, but 11 tackle breaks, 127 metres. It wasn't really hard for him, was it? Just kind of went about his work, and then just get him one-on-one in a try-scoring situation, and he goes over. So, yeah, Manu, a great option this week. Brandon Smith, he did pick up that little bit of an ankle issue. Do we think he's any doubt, or is it all systems go on the cheese train again?
I haven't seen anything on him. I did notice that late in the game. I was like, oh no, I don't want another player down.
Yeah.
Because next week was looking pretty spicy. I think unless stuff comes out, you just jump on. He looked really good. He looked like he was busting through the line and just really putting in those big effort plays, especially late in the game in the second half. 60 from a guy who's 500k and didn't score a try with lots of tackle break potential. I think he get on. It's time for the cheese. He's cheaper than what he was at the start of the year, and we all wanted him then.
Tackles have been up too. So he's had 27 his lowest, and then 33, 35, 40 in his last 4. Meters gained are obviously up. Tackle breaks are back, which were non-existent, which is wild. In those first 5 games that he played, he had 3, which is just not him. So, yeah, Smithy, with the dual position, he's obviously going to help you a lot during the Origin period, whether it's at hooker or it is at mid. And he misses 13, but he really helps you in a lot of the others, which is great. So he's got that next 5 games in between. So 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. And then it's a clear run after that. So Smithy, I think, still lower ownership, but I think he's going to be potentially a purchase for me. Okay, the position I'm in, I have Cam Murray. But with Haas out, I think Murray has to be a hold for now. But still going to be a trade come closer to round 13. That low score of 47, frustrating for sure. But as a few people were getting annoyed at me, like, bro, he's averaging 60.5. Like, can you get off your high horse and stop worrying about him? But before that, he was going pretty well. Do you think it's just a clear hold?
Yeah, he's a clear hold, especially with Haas gone. It was also Penrith, and Penrith are very good at doing that and shutting down scorers. So you might have thought he might have got a little bit more work, but he had a 45 versus Panthers in round 2 as well, and that's the only sub-50 scores he's got this year.
I didn't even notice that. That's crazy. There you go. Let's move on to the last one then, and that is Tyrone Peachey. We need to finish with a spicy one, that's for sure. 368k. He has mid and the half duels, so doesn't have the centre that you might want. But break even is a little bit high, but nothing crazy. Obviously, with his only 1 game so far, the 22 off the bench with a try. Him playing in the centres, the run that they have over the next bit is Tigers, Warriors, Roosters, Broncos. Likely will play that if he actually plays pretty well with Tungle being out. Is he that downgrade of a player that you want in your side, or is he just easy to avoid as well?
Yeah, I think he's probably in a void. And that mid-half duel is absolutely beautiful. Imagine some of the stuff you could do with that when making trades or shuffles. But yeah, 368k for somebody who's not in the position permanently, and he's a utility, so he might only play 50 minutes and then somebody comes on. So I just don't really like him. Too many red flags for me because of the player that he is.
Yeah, you kind of want him to play in the middle, don't you? So, anywho, that is that one, guys. It's obviously a very tight week of content this week, so a big thank you to everyone who is watching all of those. And make sure you go and check out the buy planning video I did with Mark from the Fantasy Amateurs. That has a lot of great information. He's a very smart man and just gets you thinking of what to do. So trades for this week, you should really be looking at potentially getting guys that are going to help you, especially in that first bunch of weeks in the buy period. So have a check out of that video. Obviously, all the information we're getting here is going to be very helpful for you. And check out all the late mail, obviously, regarding Chance, regarding Tohu, regarding Tavanga and the like there. And I think that'll help you make the correct trades for round 9. It's going to be a very spicy one, as Lockie said, with trying to field a good 17. And if you have to play Ben Murdoch, the best cash cow in the world, Masilla, I hope he gets another 32 for you. Good luck, guys.